Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this 26th episode of LinkedIn Live Audio Event Series, where we are conversing with thought leaders, founders, and CEOs about their journey, how they have unlocked their own true potential, and now they are unlocking true potential of folks around them. Evening, afternoon, and morning, based on where you're from. This is your host, Prashant. And before I get any further, I would like to emphasize the purpose of this event. We aim to unlock the true potential of folks who are in constrained environments, maybe not able to get enough time to connect to their role models, maybe unable to break through their extremely preoccupied mundane life, or maybe the internet buzzwords are adding friction to harness positive changes. No matter what the reason may be, there is value in staying towards the end of this event. Today's topic in discussion is build a strong resume to navigate through the slow job market. Our guest speaker, who need not any introduction, Robynn Storey, CEO of Storeyline Resumes, pioneer of innovative executive resume writing and holistic career services. Her visionary leadership bridges job seekers to dream careers through tailored resume, interview coaching, LinkedIn optimization, and counseling. A sought after speaker and media guest, Robynn redefines professional success, leaving an indelible mark on job seekers worldwide. Fueled by a deep grasp of industry dynamics and employer demand, Robynn and her team have shaped hundreds of thousands of resumes around the globe, unlocking fresh pathways for job seekers around the globe. Show us some love here, guys. Show me some reaction. And welcome Robynn Storey to the event. How are you? Where are you? What's going on?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much. Wow, that's a lot to live up to this morning. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Robynn. So where are you today? Which city? Which state?
I am in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, about a 45-minute ride from the famous Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, out here in the country of rural Western Pennsylvania.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, folks around the world, we have Robynn Storey. Robynn Storey, you've been leader for so many years. You've been working so many years. You have worked with folks, leaders around the globe. Why we want to talk about this particular topic? Build a strong resume to navigate through this slow job market. Folks are curious to know, and I am curious too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, a couple of years ago, you could shake a stick at a job and get an offer in a couple of weeks. Right now, post-pandemic, the world is a bit of a different place. Jobs aren't as plentiful. Interview processes are much longer.
Mhm.
There are much more competition for every open available position. That isn't just indicative to the United States, that's really around the globe. So now more than ever, you need a resume that tells your professional story, not focuses on your job duties, and really elevates your history to be attractive enough for somebody to pick up the phone and give you a call for an interview. We see lots of resumes come through the door here,
Mhm.
right? So now more than ever, your resume truly has to be a couple of things. It's got to be focused on your accomplishments and impact. It's
Mhm.
got to have a bend toward what we're looking for in these applicant tracking systems that so many companies are using.
Mhm.
And it's a place where you're going to check your humility at the door and really focus on telling a great story of your employment history and every impact that you've made, whether that's people, a process, or revenue, or whatever the case may be. We find that the more aggressive you are in your resume, the more likely you are to score multiple interviews. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Great, and couldn't agree more with you, Robynn. Your resume is your passport as an individual to get into the organization, to get the first call. And at this point, for every job, couldn't agree more. For each job opportunity, I see that there are 200 applicants. Some I see like over 2,000 applicants and different portals. And we have AI in the system now. So there is a filtering happening by the machine, which is going to check few eligibility criteria. So um, where do we start, Robynn? There's
Well,
so much to
I think the
talk.
first place that we really want to start is the difference between AI, the difference between ATS, how to integrate networking into your approach, and how it is that you should be looking for a job in this day and age. So the first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit are the number of applicants, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, we're looking at maybe 100, 200, 300 applicants per position,
Mhm.
a year ago, 2 years ago. I regularly have followers and clients send me, screenshots of postings where there are 2,000 applicants, 3,000 applicants, 5,000 applicants.
Wow.
So, number one, first and foremost, there's a lot of competition for jobs. The
Mhm.
second thing is there's something fairly new that we're seeing that has really come to light in about the past 12 months, and it's what I call the fake job problem.
Wow.
There are several reasons why companies post positions that aren't really available.
Mm.
So, job seekers, and if you are on this call and you've been looking for a job, you have probably seen on multiple instances the same position posted over and over. You see a position, it's perfect for you, you meet 75% of the criteria, you apply for that job, you see they've got 3, 4, 500 applicants, and you think, well, there's a lot of competition, but I'm right at the top here, I should get a call, I should get an email. You don't get anything, and then a couple of weeks later, a month later, you see it reposted again. So you want to be on the lookout for what I call fake jobs. The reasons why fake jobs are becoming more popular. And the New York Post did an article on this a couple of months ago that I found pretty interesting. If you have a minute, go and look it up. And it's really about appearances, right? Companies want to look like they're really busy. They want to look like they're growing. They want to look like they're
Mm.
hiring. Job numbers are being skewed through what's being reported. So, if you're seeing things over and over and over, that job probably really doesn't exist. So you want to kind of, educate yourself on what these fake jobs might look like or feel like, and, don't waste your time. That's really the first thing.
Mhm.
The second thing is really about this competition. There are a lot of people that are employed that are looking for jobs. There are a lot of people that are unemployed that are looking for jobs. So, during the pandemic and the year after, when everything was sort of plentiful, it was a lot easier to land an interview. Now it's becoming more difficult. So you want to make sure that whatever you're sending, however you're applying, that you're checking off a couple of boxes, right?
Mm.
You want to read through that job requisition or that job description. And if you're not really meeting, at least 75% of the criteria for that position, whether or not that's education, whether or not that's experience, or whatever the case may be, you probably want to pass that job. Now, here's where AI is becoming a valuable tool for both companies like mine and
Mhm.
for job seekers. So while we don't use any sort of AI to develop resumes, because ultimately we're storytellers, right? That has to come
Mm.
from another human. But what we will do is we'll take a couple of job positions or job postings that our clients send us as part of that homework that we give them when we're developing their packages. And we're
Mhm.
going to run that through AI. And we're going to say to AI, hey, give me the top 10 keywords or the top 10 requirements for, this group of 3 positions. And then AI is going to spit out, 10 key phrases or 10 keywords that are relevant to maybe all 3 of those job postings. That's something that anyone can do with an AI app, right? So you're going to take those job postings, run it through AI. You're going to give it a command or the prompt. You're going to say, give me the top 10 keywords or the top 10 requirements for these jobs. And then you're going to make sure that those phrases or some variation of those phrases are buried in your resume. That's going to help
Mm.
you with the ATS systems. Now, what is an ATS system? An ATS system is an applicant tracking system, totally different from AI, but also, it's intelligence generated. And what its job is to review a lot of resumes. Now, the key thing to know about an applicant tracking system is that it's really powered by humans. Humans are the
Mm.
ones making the determination as to what the criteria is that they're going to put in that applicant tracking system. It
Mhm.
could be anything from a degree requirement to a number of years of experience, to where it is that you are physically located geographically, where it is that they're hiring for. It could be a lot of different things, but a lot of folks get, the AI piece and the ATS piece confused, and they really don't have much to do with one another. So if you familiarize yourself with some of the tools and some of the processes and some of the technology that you're
Mhm.
going to go through in a job search, the better off your results are going to be.
Wow. So this is a key insight here, guys. Can we just have some reaction here? Was this helpful? Give me a thumbs up here. Wow, so many of you giving me thumbs up. Thank you so much. So, Robin, we spoke about this ATS and AI and how AI can help us get the right keywords so that we can have the right story put in here in our resumes. Now, the question also comes in here is that once we have applied, right? So we will go into that after some time. But once we apply, the first thing is also a cover letter, right? So we have to write something about who we are, and that is on top of our resume, and why we stand out differently. So, any tips in that regard, how and what we should be, right? How do we go about that?
Yeah, I mean, this probably is not the answer that you're expecting from a resume company. Um, but if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, they kind of know that my approach might be a little non-traditional. Every resume package that we create, hundreds every week. We include a cover letter. The cover letter for me is more like a check the box exercise, right? So if you're applying for a position and that company says you're required to submit a cover letter, you're going to submit a cover letter. You're going to submit a cover letter that you've pre-written, or you write a quick cover letter, or if you're working with us, you're going to submit the cover letter that we've given you. If for some reason, and a lot of job applications now, you can bypass the cover letter, go ahead and bypass it. We are, as a society, on information overload. And, we get a lot of our information, social media, of course, everybody's on the internet all day long. When we're looking at recruiters and we're looking for hiring managers, and we're looking at this process where, folks are reviewing resumes, maybe they're doing, the ATS piece, or maybe they're reviewing it by eye. They probably don't need much more than your resume. If they're interested in you, you're gonna see them go into your LinkedIn profile. So our rule of thumb for cover letters is keep it short and sweet, right? 2 or 3 paragraphs, a call to action, why it is you might be interested in this position. And then you can kind of tweak it a little bit, as you're applying. But I find that in a job search right now, you're submitting so many applications that can become extremely tedious and time consuming to be customizing a cover letter, when I think that they're, not as relevant maybe as they used to be. And also, your resume is really the star of the show, right? So get yourself a generic cover letter, something that's going to, sort of check all the boxes for any type of position that you're going to be applying for, and submit it as, check the box activity. But I have never been, and I'm not now, a huge fan of customizing cover letters, because I think it's a big waste of time. In a job search, you want to be, sending out 20, 30, 40 applications per week. So that would be a lot of customizing of cover letters, right? A lot of people have full-time jobs, we've got families, we've got other things going on. There's my non-traditional answer about the cover letter. Make sure the resume is really solid, telling that story. And more importantly, know where you're applying. Use your network. We'll get into networking a little bit later. But I have found that, using a combination of a really solid resume that tells a great story, the ability to network, the ability to reach out, to make connections, to send an email, to send a message, send a note. Those are all things that result in really successful job searches.
Got it. One more question here is coming up. As you are seeing so many resumes on daily basis, do you want to call out what are the key things where people are going wrong, or very common mistakes? What do you see, what they can very quickly fix it by themselves? One thing I learned is that a lot of folks who are writing their resumes, they're not reading their own resumes. So that's one. But anything you want to call out, like a couple of
Yeah, the first thing I always say is, if you are bored by your own resume, everyone else is too. So if you don't read what you've written and the story that you've created about your experiences, about your successes, about your history, your impact, innovation, leadership, contributions, nobody else is going to be interested in either. So, look at that resume, give it to your significant other, give it to a friend, have someone else take a look at it. And if somebody says, oh, that's fine, that's probably a red flag for me. They should say, hey, I wish I had a job for you. Hey, you sound amazing. This is the one tool. I try to reiterate this over and over and over. This is the one tool that you have in your arsenal that you're going to send out, and you might be up against, like we said, 200, 300,000 people for a job. If you're not excited about what it is that you're saying, no one else is going to be excited about it either. That's the first thing. The second thing is, please take your address off of your resume. You can put your city and your state. The other thing that you want to include in your resume is what work arrangement you're looking for. It's perfectly acceptable to say, I'm looking for hybrid, I'm looking for in office, I'm looking for remote. That is going to eliminate a lot of questions, right? So if you are someone who is only interested in a 100% remote job, right at the top of your resume, you should put, work arrangement desired, work from home, 100%. Because once you get into the interview process, and I find that there's a lot of bait and switch in these interview processes, especially for recruiters reaching out to you. Oh, 1 minute, the job is hybrid, you're in the office, 1 day a week. And then, as you're interviewing and then you come into an offer, now you're finding out that, the job is actually in the office 4 days a week. So you want to, right at the very outset, you want to classify and clarify, what sort of position, what sort of work arrangement you're after. The other thing that we do is just say, hey, this is the job title I want. I think that there's a lot of very convoluted language around job titles these days. Companies get very creative. I always blame Apple for, coming up with the term genius, and then they slapped a job title. There are things that exist in nature, right? Your vice president of business development, your customer service manager, your whatever. I think that resumes need to be really clear about the kind of job that you're after and not some sort of nondescript or obscure position. It makes it easier for a recruiter or hiring manager who's inundated with applicants to see where it is that you stand. So those are some of the key things that I say, get rid of that address. Nobody needs your home address. Put that work arrangement that you're interested in, and then just put at the top of your resume, I am after such and such position, this job title, or this type of job title. That makes it easier for everyone.
Absolutely. And Robyn, telling our unique story, any kind of input in that direction? How do we go about that?
Yeah, so I'll give an example, right? So a young man messaged me through LinkedIn today, and he said, hey, I had AI create my resume, which is like a big thing now. People think their AI is going to create their resume. So, he happened to be in technology. And so I took a quick glance through it, and I said, listen, you're not really telling me anything about you here. You're really describing your job. You're describing the duties of your job. So, if I'm in, let's just say, for instance, I'm in information technology from an executive perspective, or I'm the chief technology officer. On your resume, you might have things like, I lead a team, or I develop strategy around technology investment, or I do yada, 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 whatever. Fine. Everybody knows that. If I'm hiring for a chief technology officer, I already know what a chief technology officer does, right? Here's what I'm after. I call it the, excuse my language, the shit show story. Mm-hmm. So, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, you know that I would say that. So, what happened when you got here? What did you inherit? Well, once we start getting into the nitty gritty of real life, real jobs, real problems, real solutions, real people, that's where the magic happens, right? So if you're a senior or a chief technology officer, company, and that team was a mess. You had people with one foot out the door. You had folks that weren't invested. You had folks that hadn't had a review or a raise or had guidance and mentoring or training for years. And you say, I inherited a really disjointed team. I inherited that weren't very motivated to do their jobs. And then you tell me a story about how it is that you turn them around. You got them engaged. Maybe you move some people out. Maybe you move some people in. Maybe you improve productivity on that team by 50%. Maybe you improve the retention of the leaders on your team by 100%. That to me is something of interest. It's not the description of what you do. It's the description of what you've done, how you've made an impact. Maybe your company was spending $40 million on technology investments, and maybe only 20 of that was smart investing. So you talk about how you took your budget and you created something magical with that money. Maybe you saw an antiquated system and you led the movement to integrate a new CRM or an ERP for that organization. Whatever the case may be, Give me the specifics, give me the details, and then talk to me about, your part in it. Did you select the vendors? Did you put the team together? How has that impacted the organization? Every single thing that's on your resume, for the most part, should have some sort of beginning, middle, and end, right? What you inherited, what you saw, what was the problem, challenge, obstacle, opportunity, and then what you did, and then what was the result. How did that then impact the organization? Well, that saved us money. That made us money. That made us more efficient. It made our technology safer. Whatever the case may be, that's the story that you want to tell. Now, when you hear me talking like this, you're probably thinking, holy hell, are these resumes 30 pages long? No, they're not. We're kind of picking and choosing, right? We want to pick and choose the highlights, maybe 4, 5, 6, 8 highlights for every most recent position. And that's really where like the meat and potatoes of the resume needs to come from. And that's what you need to be talking about on your resume.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob, for sharing that. This is such a good input here. Because guys, can I get some reaction here? Can you show us some love here that you are there, you're listening? Show me some love. Give me a thumbs up or a heart sign so that we know you are out there. This conversation is adding value to you. And do not forget to repost this. See, guys, the mantra is what goes around comes around. So do not hesitate to reshare this post. What do you have right in front of you? Repost it, follow both of us so that you can continue to receive value from us. Thank you, everyone, for your inputs. I see a lot of hands getting raised for the question here, Robyn. So the market is slow. How can an individual still stay motivated? I know, this is something can be different for everybody, but any thoughts around it? So like keep staying organized is one, like keeping a track of how many job application one is applying and what's the status of
I think that those are all phenomenal ideas, right? Keeping track of where you applied, what sort of responses that you're getting. I like to give this example. If you're sending out your, people often say to me, my resume isn't working, or, this is happening or that is happening. And I say, are you getting interviews? If the answer is yes, then I say, are you getting interviews for the kinds of positions that you want? If the answer is yes, then your resume isn't the problem. It's something else. You're not getting offers. You're not getting across the finish line. You're screwing up in the interview. Maybe you're a little bit too nervous. Maybe you're not really sure, what you should be saying in an interview. Maybe you don't know how to ask for the job. It's a couple of separate problems, right? But if I see people on LinkedIn saying things like, I've applied to 900 jobs and I've gotten not one interview. And I, typically jump in and say, listen, if you've applied to 900 jobs and you've got not one interview, you have a resume problem, right? You need to be looking at the story that you're telling. And most of the time, the problem is the same. Everybody's trying to be what I call everything to everyone, the Jack or Jill of all trades, where they're, tossing, it's like word vomit. You're throwing everything up on that resume and hoping something sticks. In this day and age, when the competition is so fierce for positions, because again, you've got people that are employed looking for jobs and people that are unemployed looking for jobs, right? So you want to make sure that your resume is focused enough and tailored enough that you're sort of spoon feeding the reader small bits of information and, joyful accomplishments that you've had over your career that means something to the position that they're hiring for. So if you are after a sales position and you don't have any revenue, any market share, any example of big wins or any kind of dollars on your resume, you're not going to get anywhere. So you need to know what it is for your industry, your function, your goal, what it is that you need to be saying on your resume to make sure that it gets on there. So the key is you can adjust that resume, you can engage a service, you can talk to a friend, you can go to an online, obviously, the internet is filled with phenomenal information. Take it. Like I send people to our website so often because we work primarily with executives and senior level folks here. And I think that we're sort of middle of the road as far as pricing is concerned. I mean, I've seen resume companies out there charge, $5,000 for an executive resume, which is crazy. But people will message me and they'll say, hey, I looked at your services, it's not something that I can afford. And I go, listen, Go to our website. There's probably 100 samples. I tell people to steal from me all the time. Go steal an idea. Go steal a little inspiration. Go steal, a format, something that makes you excited to tell your story. And you can do that anywhere. I mean, you can go online and look at all kinds of things. So if you're not excited about what you're saying, the story that you're telling, go steal it from somewhere else or engage someone. But the big thing is to have a target and a focus. When you are all over the place, people just do not know where you fit. So say, for instance, you've got, maybe you started off in an admin role, then you moved into a customer service position, then you moved into a sales position, and then you moved into an operations role, right? None of our careers are smooth. None of us are where we started out. We've had jobs, sometimes some of us have had jobs for a day, some of us have had jobs for 20 years, and maybe worked with a company for 15, and we held 17 different positions. The key is to kind of draw some continuity there, right? But the continuity has to have an end game. And the end game is, what is the job that you're after? So if you're this person with admin work and operations experience and sales, and you want to end up in sales, don't spend a whole lot of time on your resume or a lot of resume talking about something that happened 15 years ago when you were an admin. Talk about things that are relevant to sales. Talk about the numbers. Talk about the relationships. Talk about the customers. I'm a name dropper on resume, so I'm like, if you did a deal with Coca-Cola and it's on the company's website, that's fair game. Put that on your resume. Name drop. Talk about things that were wins for you. So if you want to end up in a business development or a sales position, your resume should read sales, even though you had all of these other kinds of positions. See what I'm saying with that? So make it easy for the reader to see where it is that you fit, because the number one reason why someone bypasses your resume and goes to a different one is because you haven't made it clear what you want.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Robynn. Thank you for that input. And folks, in the comments of this particular event, you have a link where you can book a slot for resume consultation with Robynn's team here. And do not hesitate to go in there. Okay, so Robynn, it's time to take some questions. We got some hands out there, and I'm going to go real quick. All right, Christina, over to you. You can unmute, and you got like 20 seconds to put your questions or input. Let us know where you're from and what do you do.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Robynn and *𝗏𝘆. Wonderful, wonderful talk so far. I am in Silicon Valley, born and raised, native. I have not been rushed out of the state, thank goodness. I have done some resume reviews and writing myself for others, and I coach and mentor professional admins. Me being a career admin for 25 years and working with executives and helping them review and screen, as well as being a person who applies for opportunities. How do I relay that I had lived abroad in another country while working abroad overseas for a US company?
I love this question, and how exciting. I would just put it right in your summary.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that, I always tell this funny story, and I'll just give you a brief synopsis. For some reason, years ago, we ended up working with a guy who retired from the NFL. Since then, we've worked with lots and lots of retired NFL football players. And the first thing that we put on their resumes is what I call the sexy stuff, right? Retired NFL football player. Everybody wants to talk to a retired NFL football player. It's the same thing with that international experience, right? So when you are living and working abroad, that to me is something different. It's exciting. You get a different kind of perspective. You get a different kind of insight. That tells me that you can work and talk and engage and exchange with a lot of different kinds of people, right? So for me, that would definitely be a differentiator. So I would put that right at the very top of your resume. International experience, lived and worked abroad for, was it a US company or an international company?
US company. I was living in Melbourne, Australia for 4 years part-time. So
I
back and
know
forth.
how exciting. So I would definitely put that up there. And then
Okay.
whenever you're describing, that experience on your resume, talk about the experience of living and working in Australia, what that meant to you, how that might have been different for you, what sort of skill set you took away from there. Those are all things that are going to be very interesting to a reader.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right. Thank you, Christina. All right, Michael, over to you. 3, 2, 1. And once you unmute.
Yeah, hey, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't really have a question, more so just a comment. I just wanted to thank Robynn for the information. Like, this is probably the most thought-provoking and candid information that I've ever heard anyone give about a resume, and I just really appreciate it. I'm glad I popped my head in this morning, and I just wanted to just thank you. That was really it. Just thank you so much.
Oh, how nice. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
So, Maddie Graver, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi, Robynn. I'm also from Pittsburgh. Go Steelers.
Yeah, baby, go Steelers. He just sent me a
That's
note
right.
this morning, and he said, I can tell your Yinzer voice how you talk on LinkedIn. So there we go.
Well, you know what? We never get rid of our Yinzer accent. That's what we're
We do
proud.
not.
That's right. Hey, Robynn, I just want to thank you so much. 𝗏𝗏𝘆, want to thank you as well. And I just want to tell you that your message is so progressive and something that I don't think a lot of us, have heard before, especially, I'm a 45-year-old woman, and pretty much everything that you're saying is something that I've always felt in my heart. And my mother, who was always an executive, she always, said the same things that you're saying, but now like you're putting this message into the mainstream, and I can't thank you enough. But I do have a question. I'm wondering, everything that you're saying is so spot on, and it's so, it has such a human centric kind of a message. I'm wondering, how do we keep that going, and how do we, keep that spirit in mind when we're interviewing with a lot of these companies that don't have a very progressive or human centric culture? And how do we, when we need money, how do we keep it going when we're kind of desperate for a job?
Here's the deal, Maddie. There is a sense of general dread in the hiring process that has never existed before. So I'm going to preface this by saying just a little background. Pandemic hits, people get laid off. The market doesn't do anything. The economy's fantastic. We're all at home watching Netflix and ordering shit like crazy. So, there's money flowing. Then companies go, hey, we laid a lot of people off. We need to bring a lot of people back. So they go out, they're hiring. Well, now people are a little bit different. They realize, hey, I'm a candidate, I'm in a pretty good spot. I had clients during the pandemic getting job offers double and triple what they were making in their previous jobs. They were in such high demand positions, right? Well, then after the pandemic, then, we've been on a roller coaster, right? Now we're seeing layoffs. Now we're seeing this. Now we're seeing that. The problem is that during this last sort of 18-month phase, a lot of people that ended up getting laid off were recruiters. So a lot of the function of hiring has now fallen to people that maybe haven't hired before, or maybe the remaining recruiters that were left behind are handling double or triple the load. So people are overwhelmed. There are jobs to be filled. There's a lot of applicants that are applying, or candidates applying for these positions. They need to interview a lot of people. So I think the best thing that you can do, number one, is stand out. Your personality, I've known you for 30 seconds, already shines through to me. I love how you said your mom was an executive. I love how you talked about yourself in a way that was elevated. And I think that you need to keep that level of energy and excitement. It is all contagious. So when you go to an interview, or you show up for an interview with someone who couldn't give a shit if you were in that seat or not, you want to be excited to be there. You want to be engaging. It is something that is contagious. The more excited you are, the more positive, the more proactive, the more you talk about problems and solutions and your history and how that applies, the more engaged they're going to become. I think that the best thing that you can be in an interview is lively, happy to be there, grateful for the opportunity, and engaged in the process, even if they don't sort of display the same enthusiasm. That's my best advice for you. I hate the idea that people are being asked to do interviews with a bot. People are being asked to do interviews by video because the company either doesn't have the resources or the patience or the people, to get involved in the process. So my best advice is if you find yourself in a situation where you're being interviewed by a bot, hang up on it and walk out. If the first contact from the company is for you to record yourself answering questions, no go for me. Hiring is about instinct and has always been. Hiring is about people and has always been. Hiring is about connection and has always been. And no amount of technology or tools or distractions that companies create is ever going to change that.
Thank you, Robynn.
Welcome, Maddie.
Wow. Hiring is about instinct. That is so right. Robynn, thank you so much for that input. Maddie, thanks for your question. And then over next, we have 𝗬𝗀𝘆.
Hello. Okay. Hi. Sorry, I didn't know if I was going to get the intro or invite, but thank you so much, Prashant, and thank you, Robynn, for having this conversation this morning. I'm happy I tuned in as well. My name's 𝗤𝗀𝘆, and I'm a solutions engineer, and I'm also a career mentor. I help career transitioners get into tech, following the rules versus what the exceptions are that we see all up and down LinkedIn. And I love your input about the shit show story. So my question is, including that in your resume, how do you make sure that you don't down talk your current company, but still, explain what you walked into, the innovations that you offered, and then the results that you acquired from those innovations?
Hi, 𝗤𝗀𝘆. That is a great question. Well, the first thing is we're not going to use the word shit show on our resume. The second thing is that you can absolutely, tell a great story about change and innovation without slamming anyone. So, you want to use soft words. There were challenges. There were some obstacles. There was a bit of a disconnect. You don't want to say anything like the boss was terrible. We didn't have any budget. If you didn't have any budget and you were still able to make an impact, you're going to give an example of that. And you're going to say with limited resources, I was able to take an antiquated system and, drive the appropriate upgrades, or, we sunsetted and then we got this in or we got that in or whatever. And tell that story. So you want to be genteel about the approach. You don't want to slam anyone, but everyone is going, anybody with half a brain is going to be able to say, when you start saying language around obstacles and challenges, limited budget, maybe an unsupportive, or maybe this idea wasn't, we weren't able to gain the support that we needed for this particular idea until we were halfway through. And then, executive leadership was, all in and told us to run with it. You can be honest in your story. You just don't want to be as honest as you would be with your best friend or, when you're sitting in a bar having a glass of wine. You want to make sure that the audience is going to be judging that, and that you need to use what I call soft language or genteel language when you're telling that story.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just for the record, I would never use shit show on a resume, but I appreciate that explanation. Thank you, guys.
I would love to use shit show on. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
And let us know what happens.
Because sometimes that's just what it is.
Yeah, that is so cool. And let us know what happens. So next, what we have is Livia Smith. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Prashant and Robynn. I'm very pleased to be here with you guys. Very good content. I do have a question, Robynn. I am a program manager. I work for an IT company right now, and I also into the training and learning. And yesterday I was in an interview, which I felt a little bit awkward because the focus they were like trying to understand why I changed a lot of my jobs. And of course I had a lot of blocks on my ways, and also I had some choices that I had to make, but the focus on the interview was trying to understand that instead of looking forward of what I can bring to the company. how would you suggest me to act or answer and show this into the interview?
So I was talking to an executive client of ours a couple of weeks ago, and he went through something very similar to you. The first thing was his wife got cancer, so he ended up taking about 8 months off to take care of her. A couple of years later, his elderly parents needed some attention. So he ended up taking a sabbatical to take care of them. Then there were some other things that happened. He had a couple of short-term positions. He had a couple, he had some really great longevity in his history. And I will tell you that, Livia, 99% of us as humans are going to have some breaks in our career. The funny part about this was, as an executive leader, he was interviewing at a very high level executive position. And in about the second part of the interview process, the young-ish recruiter that was asking him very pointed questions about these gaps. When he went and he looked her up on LinkedIn, her previous job was actually nothing wrong with that. She was a college graduate. She did an internship in college. Her first job out of school was a shift manager, and she was now sort of an entry-level recruiter. And she was asking him all of these questions. So he said to me, he was pissed. He's like, where does she get off? Blah, blah, blah. And I go, listen, it's not her. Someone told her, or someone said, hey, this is how we review people. These are the questions that we ask. These are the things that we focus on. It's not really a people problem, right? It's a cultural problem. Culture is built from the top down. So if you've got leadership, with the old saying, doing things the way they've always done them, which is the most dangerous phrase in business, they're sort of setting the tone. The real problem is that as a society in hiring, especially in the USA, whatever reason, the mindset is about keeping you out instead of letting you in. The fact is that 99% of us are going to have challenges in our career paths. We're going to have taken some time off, me included, time off to, I left corporate America, I stayed home with kids, I started a consulting business, blah, blah, blah. You maybe had a short-term job, maybe it wasn't a good fit for you, maybe you moved to something else, also not a good fit, or maybe you got laid off. I've had clients get laid off 3 times in a year and a half. Wow. Everybody is going to have them. The key to sort of overcoming this is to keep sort of retargeting, refocusing the direction of this conversation. And you can even say, and I think that, when you kind of take this approach, and you might think this might be a little bit snarky, but maybe sometimes we need be a little bit snarky. You might say something like, as humans, I'm sure most of us sitting in this room don't have perfect career paths. That is going to make people, number one, uncomfortable. Half the room is going to shake their head and say, hell yeah, that's me too. And then you're going to say something like, I would really like to focus on this particular experience. So I worked for ABC company. Here's where those challenges were. Here were some things that I did. Here's where I think that this may be of value to you. Based on the information that you've given in the job description or the conversation that we've had today, sounds to me like you really need someone who can come in and clean up X, Y, Z. When you kind of refocus the conversation, that you keep it positive, but you also, you let them know, hey, none of us in this room are perfect. We are all humans. Everybody here has lost a job, changed a job, taken time off, whatever. It sort of resets the stage. It puts you back on a level playing field. I'm not a huge fan of what I call the stress interview, which is becoming really popular. And for me, it seems like such a mean thing to do. It's like the question that they're going to ask you to kind of get you off your game. If you're finding that happening to you over and over and over, you need to find a strong way to make a comeback. And we're hearing more and more about those stress interview, kind of aspects. And just like you said, if you look at your resume, you kind of need to level the playing field, and you can do that through those sort of suggestions that I've made. And if you're a little bit nervous to do that, that's okay. Maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe you're quiet. Maybe you're shy. Maybe you're an introvert. Maybe you're not. But either way, you're not going to get that job unless you can control the dynamic of that conversation.
Wow. Great. Yeah, I wasn't comfortable saying that. So yeah, that's really relates to that. Well, thank you so much, Robyn. Really appreciate your feedback.
I want you to get comfortable saying that, Livia. And if you can practice in the mirror or practice with a friend or practice, with a partner, the more you can control the narrative, the better off you're going to be. And I think it's terrible to go to an interview and feel uncomfortable about something that we all share. So if that makes you feel any better, I hope it does.
It does. Thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate
so
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely. And guys who are listening here, show me some love here. Where are you? What's going on in your lives? If you have a question, you want to post it on the post, feel free to do that. We have, okay, I'm getting some hearts here, some thumbs ups here. Thank you for acknowledging that this input is helping you. And I tell you what, sometimes we may do a lot of research, we may get a lot of doors closed, but we just need one yes. So what goes around comes around. Help each other. And over to you, Joseph.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Appreciate you guys having me on, and thank you, Robyn, for all the content you're providing. I had a quick question based on, I guess, length of resume and the negative connotation around a longer resume. As folks kind of get more seasoned in their career, it tends to build up, and you don't really want to concede on quality of the resume for reducing the overall length of your resume. So I'm wondering how that connotation has evolved, and if you're still seeing that the length is impacting the ability to get a resume recognized as
Hi,
opposed to
Joseph.
quality.
Great question. It's a question that I field quite a bit. 99% of the resumes that we create here at Storyline are 2 pages. And the reason we do 2-page resumes is, first of all, we don't really work much with what I call kids. And I can say that because I'm 55, but, entry-level candidates. They can have a 1-page resume. Anytime you get 8, 10, 12 years of work experience, your resume is going to automatically go to 2. Now, we tend to cap our resumes at 2 pages because, again, short attention span, information overload, lots of content out there, yada, yada, yada. So here's how we do it. So in terms of hiring, for the most part, any senior level or executive leader going into a job interview, the last 2 or 3 positions that they held are going to be most valuable to who is interviewing for them. That's the most relevant experience. It's likely a migration either into a similar role or a bump up that the candidate is looking for. So really those last 3 positions are going to be most relevant. So what we do on a resume is focus really on the top 3 or the most recent 3 positions, maybe 4 positions. But, a lot of people with long careers, 20, 30, 40-year careers, number one, we don't want to put any dates, past 20 years because, I know age discrimination, people talk about it, but it's an absolute real thing. And ATS, I think, has made it worse because, companies and recruiters, they can sort of program ATS to cap off people that appear to have more than X amount of years experience. So we want to be careful about that. So what we want to do, so say for instance, you worked for 25 years ago, you worked for IBM or you worked for Hershey or you worked for NASA or you worked for whoever. So experiences that have high name recognition, a really nice title. At the bottom of your resume, we'll do something called like an early career summary. And we'll put that, you were the VP of business development for, XYZ company, or you were whatever. At the bottom, we might include a couple more experiences, especially around highly recognizable company names. But, resumes really, if you want them to be read, if you want them to be reviewed, if you want them to be effective, they've got to be, a 2-page synopsis that really, touches on the highlights from the last 10, 15, 20 years, depending on, how far you are in your career, and do that in a way that, someone's not, needing a microscope to read that document when it's in front of them. So that's really my advice. Focus a lot of your content efforts. We always do what I call top heavy resumes. So that's like the up sort of the, in the inverted pyramid, right? At the very top, you're going to have the most information, that most recent job. And then down below it, that job's going to have maybe 2 bullets less. And then down below it, that job's going to have 3 or 4 bullets less. That's how you want to build a resume, from the top down.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. for that input here, Robyn. So Joseph, does that answer your question? Are we good?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. And Andrea. So Andrea, over to you.
Do you say Andrea? Hello?
Yep, Andrea, we can hear you.
Hello, Andrea.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you guys. Everything you guys been saying, so meaningful to me. Like, I learned a lot already. Thank you. Appreciate you guys' time. So, I have been building my resume in human resources for 10 years, and I love my career. Uh, I have been looking for work for the last 3 months. And like Robyn said, it seems like I don't have a problem with my resume because I do get a lot of phone calls, a lot of job interviews. I go to the second job interview, but then it stops there. So I have been trying to analyze what the problem is. And I noticed that for the human resources manager positions or director positions that I'm trying to apply, I'm not qualified enough. It seems like I'm not selling myself really well. And it seems so then I try to apply to human resources generalist jobs. So below me, and the first question they always ask me is like, why do you want to be a generalist if you've been a manager before? So it doesn't make sense to me, and the interview goes downhill from there. So what should I do? How can
Yeah,
I
this is a
educate
common
myself?
problem. This is really a common problem. You're stuck between two levels. You have to figure out which level you want to be. I mean, obviously, you need a job, so you're applying for things that you can go in and do easily. But you really should be in a management role because that's where your career has aspired to, right? So at some point, you've got to say to yourself, how am I kicking this across the finish line? The idea is really to, I always say, if you remember the old saying about dressing for the job that you want instead of the one that you have, which of course doesn't apply in this day and age because most of us are sitting at home in our pajamas. But, back in the day when you were going into the
That's so
office,
true.
yeah, you were dressing for the job that you wanted and not the one that you had. So your resume really needs to follow the same philosophy. And that means that if you are looking to get into a management or a director level position, you need to have enough junk in the trunk, enough examples, enough leadership stories to really be pinging those folks that are, bringing you in for that interview. So what does that mean in human resources? Well, that means obviously people, telling great stories about maybe taking a team that was underperforming and turning it around, coaching and mentoring someone, managing a budget, leading, change management initiatives for the organization or being part of a team that does that. Looking up the higher level language that I would find in a human resources executive's resume or in their job description around leadership or transformation, creating programs. It could really be anything. But ultimately, the language that you use on your resume and then the language that you use in that interview, it all needs to match. So if you want to be a director level position, you can't sound like a generalist in the interview. You need to already sound like a director. And again, that's about strategy, right? People that get into the director, the VP level, they're not talking in what I call worker bee language, creating a spreadsheet or, doing something sort of, I don't want to say lower level because there's nothing wrong with creating a spreadsheet, but you get what I'm saying, right? So you want to be talking about it from a strategic level. What was a problem in human resources? Maybe there was an issue in the learning development department. Maybe you created an ERP program. Maybe you created a recognition program that they didn't have before. Maybe you identified the need for a job share whatever. There's a million different examples from a leadership perspective in human resources that you can give. Find 3 or 4 or 5 of them that you've had experience in being a part of or leading on your own through the course of your career and keep coming back to it. So really, it is so important for you to be speaking already at that level when you're in that interview, and that's how you're going to score that offer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
One more.
Even if you have to fake it, Andrea, for a little bit, even if you have to fake it till you make it, that's perfectly fine. When you can get yourself talking at the level that you need to be talking at the interview, that's when you're going to get that offer.
Correct. And one more question. So, for example, I have a job interview in a few minutes, and it's a large company, but once again, it's below the manager title. Is more like a generalist or more like a specialist, human resource specialist. So, do you think it's a good idea to put my foot in the door in that company
Absolutely.
going
Every
lower?
opportunity is a good idea. And you can even say something like, I am, I've got management experience. I'm also a really phenomenal human resources generalist. Here's how I think I can contribute to your team. The fact of the matter is, you need a job. You want to get paid, right? This is bottom line. This is nothing to be ashamed about. You have bills to pay. Holidays are coming up. You got to put gas in your car. You got to put food on your table. You do whatever you need to do. But when you get in there to be the best damn generalist they're talking to that day, and you have a caveat, you also have leadership and management experience. And maybe that's what they need on that team. Maybe that's something that they can tap into. Never be sorry for the experience that you have. But in this job interview for this generalist, you talk about why you're the best damn generalist they're going to talk to today.
And can I say, is there an opportunity for career growth?
Don't ever say that in the first interview. When people make this mistake all the time, and I'm just being honest with you. If I'm interviewing someone and one of the first questions they ask me is, how am I going to grow in this company, or is there an opportunity for growth? I already think they're not interested in this job. They're not going to stay. That's a problem for me. So I would never get into that question during an interview. Be focused on the job at hand, ask questions about the job, be focused on how it is that you can contribute, be focused on things that you bring to the party that maybe someone else doesn't. That's what I would be doing if I were you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're
That
so
means a lot
welcome.
to me. I appreciate it.
Sure. And just wanted to add here a little bit that growth, asking that question in the first go, just makes the other person feel that, hey, we haven't worked together. And how do I answer this question? So it's kind of a little awkward as well, that how do I answer that question? So that's a part, right? You want to call it. And also it's our research that we can research about the company, how many people are working on it, what kind of titles they've been growing. And growth is earned once we just get into there and do our magic. So that's just my 2
Absolutely.
cents.
Absolutely. It's all about the magic.
Yeah. All right.
And
Thank
shine. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Robin, we at the top of the hour, we got a couple of folks in the queue. You want to take those questions? And
Absolutely. Yes, of course.
all right, Doreen, over to you. Where are you from? What's going on in your world? Let us know.
Hello, all. Thank you so much. I have been following Robin and team for quite some time, and I'm just ecstatic to be chosen. I guess my questions were similar to Andrea, but I turned 60 years old this year, and I've been a director of HR for quite some time, and would like to be a VP before I end my career in another 8 to 10 years.
Yes, girl. Hello, Doreen. Good for you. You should be Chief Human Resources Officer.
And I really appreciate what you said to Andrea. Is there anything extra that I should be doing at this level? I too, when I get on several Zoom calls and so forth, I get through those calls, but when I get in person, it seems like things fall through for me.
Well, the classic age discrimination, and I'm right there with you. I turned 55 this year. Here's the deal. Companies are either going to appreciate the wisdom, the experience, the success that comes from more seasoned candidates, or they're not. There's nothing that you can do about that. You can't not be 60, right? You can do a couple of things on your resume to downplay some of the older experience. That's the first thing. I've always hated that job search advice for people over the age of 50 is look younger. I think it's bullshit. We are who we are. You have something to bring to the party, a unique perspective and experience that people that are 35 are not going to have, right? So you need to be up playing that. You are a leader. You've been around the block. You've seen lots of different evolutions of human resources, people, culture, team building, program development, evolutions around different types of economies, the integration of technology, how that's changed. Those all need to be viewed as an asset and not as a liability. So the first thing that you need to do when you get in those interviews is own it, right? It is so important that you own your experience and that wisdom, and you've got to make that wisdom attractive. I tell this funny story all the time, and you'll probably relate to this. When we were kids growing up in very rural Western Pennsylvania, the parents used to take turns driving us to roller skating or to football games or, wherever. So this family down the street, they had 6 kids and their dad worked for the water company. And we grew up in a very rural area. And when he would be driving us to these different events and places, I loved riding in the car with him because he was so interesting. He worked for the water company, and his job was to lay out bringing water to these rural communities. He knew where every pipe was. He remembered that in 1972, this town got sewage. He remembered that in 1978, this town got a fresh and reliable water supply, and they got rid of all of their wells. In 1987, and I used to think to myself, I hope somebody's writing this down, because this guy is he's like a walking encyclopedia of miles and miles and miles of water production and pipes, probably for a 40-mile radius. Well, it turns out he had 6 kids, and all of them ended up becoming engineers. But the moral of this story is the people that know where the bodies are buried, the people that know how programs and processes and the effective tools were built, bring such an exuberant and such an exciting and such a wealth of wisdom and knowledge to an organization that cannot be overlooked. That needs to be a focus of how it is that we hire, and should be how it is that we are hiring. So if someone makes you feel bad about being 60, or you feel like you're being passed over, you probably don't want to work there anyway.
Great advice. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome.
Go, Doreen, go, and let us know what happens. We like to learn about these stories, what happens next, which helps us increase our experiences and share it with many more who are in this pursuit of better job. And over to you, Bill. What's cooking?
Hey, good afternoon, Robyn. Bill, pleasure to talk with you. I've been following you, been following you all year, and actually, I went ahead and I scheduled a time with you for today. So I could really use a hand. I have been transitioning after leaving the military, and actually landed a role through my network this year, but it was a short stay at that company. I can share a little bit more about it with you. Bottom line is, my resume didn't get me there. It came to me through my network. So
Sure.
now I'm really struggling trying to pack in, number one, my military experience, but also blend that with my previous industry experience. And I feel like I'm picking up on Joseph's conversation with you about resume length. And I think I'm at a point now where I just really need a hand, and possibly maybe even a branding sheet. Do you ever recommend something that defines your brand?
Yeah. So first of all, Bill, great to meet you. You'll be talking with a member of my team today. First things first, thank you very much for your service. And all you former military guys, you send us your 37, I call them fit reps. And we look through those. It's information overload. But ultimately, we need to be able to do a couple of things. Number one, we need to turn that military speak into business language, because people are afraid of military speak in this country. Not of the military, but of the language that the military uses to communicate. So, we've got folks that, manage multi-billion-dollar budgets coming from, the U.S. military, and we need to make, we need to figure out a way to make that relatable to, a business resume. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll do what we call transition language. How it is that we're going to take your experience in a really unique setting and background and correlate that to what happens in business. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, we like to stick to that 2 to 3 page 3-page on a rare occasion, 2-page for the most part, because ultimately, your resume has to be what I call consumable. When someone opens it, do they want to read it? When it's in front of a hiring manager or a recruiter, is this something that they can consume in a reasonable period of time? So, we are very much huge proponents and supporters of veterans at our company. So we'll make sure to include any honors or awards or distinctions, that sort of thing. But the jobs are treated just like regular jobs, like corporate jobs or whatever the case may be. So whenever you're on the phone with your resume interviewer and you're going through that history, that's what we're going to help you do. We need to be able to tell a story that people can relate to. And that's, obviously, first and foremost, the biggest challenge to military transition. So yeah, I mean, once we get into the nitty gritty, and then you figure out what you want to be when you grow up or what you want to be in your next life, we'll have you upload some homework, couple of job targets of interest, and then the story that we align, the story that we tell ultimately ends up aligning to the job that you're after. But yeah, I mean, we work with military folks all the time, and their histories are so exciting and, really storied and really varied, and they have experiences that nobody else has, but we've got to find a way to make that relatable. And that's what we do with our military folks.
Okay, that's great. So I appreciate that. And
oh, no problem. My pleasure.
So I'm pretty, my resume is thoroughly sanitized from military jargon and acronyms, only because I've worked in industry for about 7 years after my first time in service. So, and now having worked, at the Pentagon for the last 15 years at the executive level, I've even been told, Robyn, that I have too much experience and the budgets I managed were so big that it's going to eliminate me for opportunities. So I'm looking forward to helping refine for specific opportunities.
Well, let me tell you this. If somebody is scared of that, or you're hearing that, you're probably barking up the wrong tree. No one should be afraid of a large budget or a deep scope of responsibility, because let's face it, I'm not downplaying business in any way, shape, or form, but when you're coming from the military at a high level and you've got leadership, I mean, you're talking, right, lives on the line, billions of dollars in equipment. That is important stuff. Those are things that are extremely meaningful. Trying to correlate that now to running a program or selling a product, or leading a team that isn't in the path of, critical danger. That doesn't make it, it's not that it's less important, right? But, people are afraid of that gives me a sort of a minute for pause.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and I've thought that too. You leave those conversations and you think, okay, well, maybe they just won't ever have an opportunity there. But some of those companies are attractive. So, but I'll get into that when I get a chance to meet with your team, and look forward to talking with you. Thanks, Robyn.
Sounds great. My pleasure.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, sir. All right, folks. So, Robyn, there's a question I want to take from the comments. I know we have exceeded the time here, but everyone out there, show us some love that you are out there listening to us. Where are you? Where are you? Are you listening to us? Is this conversation adding value? This is no consultation, nothing. It's just over the air for the community, because we believe in unlocking the true potential of folks who are in constrained environments. In the comments of this event, you will find the link where you can where you can book a time slot with Robyn's team. And if you think that's the right thing for you, go ahead and do that. It's right in the comments. So, moving to the question from the comments, the question is from Tony Rexroad. Tony, if you in the audience right now, you want to raise your hand, you can ask by yourself as well. But if you are not raising your hand, then I'm going to read the question for you. Okay. What is the best way to address in your resume the fact that your previous job titles does not fully match the tasks that job title generally covers, and you are applying for jobs that doesn't match that title but match the task? How much weight do recruiters put on job titles? Over to you,
Well,
Robynn.
recruiters put a lot of weight on job titles because that is the first thing that they see, right? A job title is something that's relatable. We had a client one time who had a marketing coordinator job title. It was all BS. She was literally a marketing director, a marketing manager. She was managing budget. She was managing people. She was driving innovation and marketing. She had spearheaded like an entire social media transformation. She took them from nothing to something in a couple of years. They kept slapping her with this coordinator title because it was a small-ish company, and they could kind of keep your salary under control when they do what I call under titling you. So in those instances, and we've run into those plenty of times throughout of our 23 years of writing resumes, what you want to do is the equivalent in parentheses. So with her, we put in parentheses, marketing manager equivalent. And then we talked about management duties first, and then we got into some of the other stuff. So it would be the same thing with you. So whether or not, that is an admin, or whether or not that is a, like, I hate the word lead, quote unquote, like I'm a team lead. That to me is just sort of a cheap way of, paying you a lower salary to manage other people. If you're a team lead, that means you're responsible for the performance of other people. They need to give you a supervisor or management title. But again, companies always trying to keep those salaries down, always trying to keep you in your place, always trying to make sure that you're not paid what you're worth. Not everybody, but a lot of times. So, on your resume, put in parentheses what you think your title is in the mainstream.
Okay. Hey, Tori. Oh, Tori, you have raised your hand. Okay, I'm gonna get her on the stage here, on the microphone here, and over to you, Tony. So does that answer your question? Tony is gone. Thank you. All right. So Robynn, we are towards the end of the session. We have folks still hands raised. Folks, in the best interest of time, I would request that you put in your details in the form which is out there in the comments, in the link for Robynn. And folks who want the recording, let me know. There's a small form out there so that I can share the recording with you all. So what else, Robynn? What do you got? Some closing notes?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people listening. Thank you so much for coming. If you're not already following me on LinkedIn, please do. I am pretty accessible. If you've got a question, feel free to send a note. If you are interested in resume services, 𝗶𝗆 was so kind to put our link up to schedule a time with my team. We're happy to have a chat with you. And that's about it. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, or if you have a question, you want to send me a message, I try to answer as many messages as I get. I'll do my best to respond to you in a day or two.
All right, Robynn. And folks, show us some love here. Where are you? I am not getting any reactions. Are you loving us? Whoa, there you go. There are the hearts, Robynn. All are there for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have come towards the end of this session. But before I go, some of the gems what I have picked from Robynn's conversation is, if you are bored with your own resume, then others will be bored too. Take your address out, add your unique value in your resumes. What did you inherit? Real job, real problems, real impact, and what magic you did created in your last opportunity. Whatever the case may be, share the details. What's the impact of to the organizational goals? What do you have? Have a target in mind and focus on your application. Consider applying to the best matching role. Leave the ones where the match is not much out there. Continue, continue, continue. You got to pay your bills. Don't be hesitant applying to the right jobs. Hiring is all about instincts. Hiring is about people. You just need one yes, and enough junk in the trunk. Your stories, examples, all gonna be all right up there. And there are don'ts, what you don't have to do in the resume. Folks, it's been a great pleasure, great event. Follow me and Robynn on the LinkedIn handle. It will be great to be in touch with you. Thank you, Robynn Storey. It's been great learning from you. It's been a pleasure. And the global audience are showing